Can you hear me now? Because I think my microphone may have been on mute. Can you all hear me now? And if you can hear me, can you just let me know that you can hear me now? I'm going to be watching the chat just to make sure that my sound is up and running again. Perfect. There we go. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for letting me know that. I saw it blinking earlier and I forgot that when it's blinking, that means that, okay, Arletta, you're on mute. Okay, so let's get into this. As I said before, we're talking tonight about failing your way to success. Now, what I deem or consider to be a failure could be something totally different than what you consider to be failure. So tonight in the chat, if you're out there and you're watching, first of all, say hello and let me know that you're out there watching. And then I would really love it if you would tell me in the chat, what is failure to you? And what do you consider failure to be? Like, what are the different working parts and components to failure? I mean, tonight I really wanted to focus on overcoming the fatigue that comes with the fear of failure. And many of you know what fatigue is. It's just like when you're tired, gets tired. When you're just emotionally, mentally, spiritually bent out of shape. And you just feel like, okay, this is it. This is the end. I cannot, absolutely cannot go on from here. And so when you get to that point, you have to have a plan as to how you're going to continue to push through that setback. And the thing about failures is that if you allow yourself to be able to go through the failure, eventually you'll be able to combat it so that the setback itself does not cripple you. But there's a method to the madness. So it doesn't just happen, overnight. But everything just like everything else we face off in life, it's a process. It's a process. It's a process for us to be able to combat and to come against the things that are trying to tell us apart. Okay, so there are a few things that failure will teach us. And someone do me a favor and put out there in the chat, failure will teach you. So although you may not have a definitive like definition to the word failure, many of us define our failures just by our circumstances alone. And that's why it means something different to everyone. It's a goal, an objective, some type of bar that you've set that in your mind and in your thoughts and the way you saw it happening, you didn't achieve it in that order. Tonight, I even want to bring to you the inventor, Thomas Edison. If anybody knows anything about Thomas Edison, we hear all the time that he created the electric current that created the light bulb, But what they don't tell you is that he also created the term that says, I failed my way to success. And the question is why? Why did he feel like he failed his way to success? And I'll tell you why. The reason is because he tried over 10,000 times before he got it right. And his response was, I have not failed. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. And how many of you out there can testify to that? How many times have you ultimately tried to fix something, tried to go after something, tried to put something in place, and it just didn't work out the way you planned? Well, I'm here to let you know that you are not alone. You're not alone. And although failure brings a lot of heavy hitting things to the table, it also builds out your resistance and your resilience. It causes you with every setback to get a little bit stronger, to get a little bit more strategic, and how you'll handle what's to come. My mother used to always say, if you don't believe in failure or letdown or setback, baby, just keep on living because your time gonna come. Maybe it's not your turn right now, and maybe life is doing real good for you right now. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's not going to come a time where failure is going to be present. And you see, when failure comes on the scene, oftentimes it makes you feel almost, it diminishes your self-confidence, and it triggers low self-esteem. Somebody put out there low self-esteem, diminished confidence. It creates feelings of hopelessness and worthlessness. And let's just be honest with it. When failure comes on the scene, a lot of times it is humiliating and downright painful. And once again, I never, ever attest or speak on anything that I myself have not gone through. And so tonight I'm going to focus and place my focus on bringing a resolve, because now that we understand that failure is without reproach. In other words, it means that all of us are going to have some type of form of failure to happen in our life at some point. So ultimately, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a plan of attack for that setback. And also you want to make sure that your posture during the failure positions you for your next level of success. Because see, you have to understand that without failure, success does not exist. And any person who's ever succeeded at anything will tell you that they didn't get it the first time around, sometimes not even the second time around, not the third, fourth, fifth, or sixth, or seventh, or 10,000 times like Thomas Edison. But it was their ability to remain motivated and confident in what they knew that caused them to be able to excel and to maneuver through the setback, the failure, and ultimately reach their goal or find their triumphant space in success. So tonight, I want you to understand more than anything, failure is simply suspended success. Someone type that in the chat for me. Failure is suspended success until the right moment. But, and it's a big but, in the meantime, you want to make sure you're working hard, that you're thinking hard, and you're remaining consistent in whatever the goal is. So although you may have categorized it as a fail, you want to make sure that you are still walking towards it, because that's your way of not drowning in the failure. You understand? Because see, failure is a lot like water. If you slip and fall in it, you won't drown unless you choose to stay there. If you choose to stay down, you will definitely drown. Don't view failure as the end all be all. It is simply suspended success. Failure is even greater than that. You know, failure positions you even closer to success. So if you take every time you've ever had a setback and you view it as, okay, this is my opportunity to get better, then you know that you're on the right road. And I even like to take it a little bit, further than that. If you're not failing at something, then obviously you're not getting any closer to your success either. Because it takes process, just like everything else takes process in life, so does failure. And so here tonight, I want to give you some solid resources and takeaways on how you too can fail your way to success. Now, I have about, it looks about 10 ways. Hey, Kat, how you doing, honey? So glad to have you here tonight. There's about 10 ways that you can begin to fail your way to success, because ultimately your failure is not your permanent stance. It's not where you're going to remain forever. So we got to figure out how to navigate through that space. We got to figure out how to push forward and move through the failure. So we're not going to stay there. We already made up in our mind that we're going to gain the wisdom from our past failures. We're going to reduce the fatigue and the anxieties about the failure. And we're going to promote and continue on with our lifelong learning, because that gets us closer to the success or the goal or that space of triumph. So how do we do that? One of the ways that you can fail your way to success is to take time to heal emotionally after the failure. Put it in the chat. Take time to heal emotionally after the failure. We're not saying that failure doesn't exist. We're not saying that failure doesn't happen. We're not saying that we don't have setbacks and we don't have moments of pause, depression, anxiety, and just times where we want to give up. What I'm telling you is that you're not alone, and that's life. Life offers us setbacks. We make decisions, we make choices, and sometimes those choices are not conducive to our journey and where we're headed. So it makes us feel like we're destitute, like we lost something. But one of the best ways to come back after you've been knocked down, after things didn't go according to plan, is to truly take that time and heal from the damage, the emotion, and the setback, the heartache, the heartbreak that was caused by the failure. Because let's just keep it 100. Sometimes failure is heartbreaking. And I know for sure, for me, failure has been enormously heartbreaking. I asked you a question in the beginning. I asked you, what is failure to you? How do you define failure? And for those of you that are watching, I asked you to define failure in the chat. Let me know what failure means to you, what it looks like. And so once you are out here and you're understanding what failure looks like to you, then you can define how to succeed. How to succeed is just taking that time to seriously take a break from the emotions that have set you back and heal. Because everything, especially any type of setback, you're going to need some emotional healing to go along with that, because life is not easy and life cannot be controlled by our circumstances. We are not controlled. We cannot control how life happens to us. We don't control the cards that are dealt to us. All we can simply do is put a plan of action in place so that we learn how to navigate the space and make better choices so that we're able to move forward with clarity. Does that make sense? I hope that it makes sense to you. So the second thing, and how you can fail your way to success, is that you can put out the reminder that there is no success. Like, I'll never obtain that thing that I'm reaching for without failure. You know what I'm saying? Failure is simply a delayed defeat. That's all it is. Failure is delay. It is not defeat. Life does not end or stop. It's simply a temporary detour. So we've got to learn how to stop trying to avoid failure, because it's inevitable. You're going to fail at something at some point in your life. And once you come to terms with that, you'll be all right. But you learn from it, which brings me to my next point of how to fail your way to success. You've got to learn from your mistakes. You've got to be strategic about it. It's not enough just to learn from them, but really sometimes sit down and take a look at the thing that you attempted to achieve that you felt like you didn't. And before you muster up enough strength to try it again, look at what went wrong. Ask yourself critical questions. Chime in and say, what can I do differently? Because, we don't give up. We don't throw in the towel because things didn't go according to plan. No, we don't do that. But what we do is we look at where it failed, how it failed, and now how can I move differently? And that's how you come up with a strategic plan to be able to move in a different manner. My mother used to say it this way: when it comes to failure, you always want to chew up the meat and spit out the bone. In other words, dismiss what doesn't serve you about where you failed and then hold on to the lesson that you learned. Somebody, did y'all get that? Hold on to the lesson that you learned, chew up the meat, spit out the bone. Because see, you can't digest the bone. And you're liable, if you swallow the bone, it's liable to get caught in your throat, because that's a very shallow and very narrow pathway. So it could cause more friction and more trouble. So it's best if you just do away with the things that you can't control about the failure. But what was the lesson? What was the lesson that you were supposed to learn in there? So that's number 3. Learn from your mistakes. Now we're going to move on to number 4. Create a positive mindset. We've got to find opportunities to grow consciously when we're going through failures. Because I could be sitting in the midst of turmoil, which I am, believe it or not, because I like to keep it 100, y'all. I'm authentic. I'm sitting in the midst of turmoil even right now. And it takes everything in me to not throw in the towel, to not feel defeated. But I've trained my mindset over the years to be more positive, to be more optimistic. And when I can't get it for myself, I know how to reach for others who know how to build me up, who know how to encourage me. And so I keep people around me that's going to build me up when I feel like throwing in the towel, when I feel like giving in. And so I'm going to give that same advice to you out there. If you're watching, create that positive mindset. Find those positive peoples and get them around you. You have to make a conscious decision not to be miserable in the midst of what feels like defeat. Because remember, failure is delay. It's not defeat. And so we just need to strategize and figure out what we need to maneuver, what we need to move around, and how we need to get back into it in order for us to be able to be most effective at it. Okay, so we're not throwing in the towel. We're going to take the time to heal emotionally. We're going to remind ourselves that there's no success without failure. We're going to learn from our mistakes. And then 4th, we're going to create a positive mindset. Someone put that out there for me. Create a positive mindset. I will tell you, before I move on from creating a positive mindset, I have a good couple of people, my mother being one of them, my auntie being another one of them, my sister being another one of them, and a few colleagues in my industry that I call on that pull me up by the bootstraps when I feel like I want to give up. Because trust me, because failure is not an easy pill to swallow, you find yourself wanting to give up. You find yourself wanting to throw in the towel. But who are those people that are present in your life that will hold you when you feel like letting go? Who are those people that are going to remind you that you need to try, you need to test, you need to improve, and you need to move forward? Who are those people? Without a shadow of a doubt, we need to identify them. Somebody say, identify your people. Find your tribe. Put it out there for me. You got to create that positive mindset in order for you to do what? Number 5, be able to continue to press forward. Because see, failure is not about you getting stuck. Failure is not about you giving up and throwing in a towel. Failure is not about you sitting somewhere talking about woe is me, even though I would love, and sometimes I do, get stuck. Because sometimes the setback and the failure hurts so bad. Especially when you feel like you had anything to do with the failure. My God. I've had times in my life where I had something to do with why it didn't work. And it hurt. And I had to admit to God that I wasn't okay in it. And I'm talking about like previous relationships, divorces, business ventures, and you name it. Ultimately, I have come against some hard-hitting moments in my life, but we don't get stuck there. We continue and we press forward. Because the pit itself, the pit of despair, the pit of failure, is not your forever home. It's not. And if you don't get anything else from me tonight, I want you to remember that. When you fail, and you will, it's not about being stuck. And it's not making that place of despair your home. It's about picking up, pulling up, recognizing, strategizing about what went wrong, and then developing a new plan as to how to press forward. Okay? So, another way for you to fail your way to success is to write down a list of the things you have succeeded at. Somebody put that out there for me. Write down a list of your successes. Write down a list of the things that you have accomplished. Because see, when life happens to us all, and sometimes it absolutely will, you recognize the fact that you need to create a reminder. You need to be reminded of when things went right. Because if you don't have that list somewhere, what are you using to refer to? What happens if you go to pick up that phone and your people ain't there? And it's between you and God. You gonna cry that thing out, you gonna shout that thing out, you gonna fuss that thing out, and you're gonna get to a point where you say, what can I do about it? What resources do I have in my hands that can help me to navigate this failed situation? And so one of the most powerful tools that I'm going to give you tonight, and make sure that you are taking heed, write down the times where you accomplished something. Write down the time where you did succeed. As I don't care how long that list is. If it's a mile long, then you get you a mile stretch of paper. But you have something that is visible to you that you can read out loud that reminds you of all the things that you've accomplished. So when the setback happens, your confidence is still there. So, okay, so this didn't work, but I remember a time when this looked like it wasn't going to work, and I did what I had to do, and I succeeded. What are those things? And make sure you write those down. While you're writing down your goals, you want to make sure that you, number 7, focus on your goals and be inspired by those who mentor you. Each and every one of us, if you don't have someone in your life that mentors you, that encourages you, that gives you strength and sends you positive vibes when it seems like life is just handing you just boulder after boulder after boulder, then you're going to have to get you someone. You're going to have to get you a tribe. You're going to have to get you some people. And listen, even when there's no one, there's always God. God always sees, he always knows, and he always cares. It doesn't matter how hard it is. I don't know why that just made me tear up. But it doesn't matter how hard your situation gets. God knows, and he sees. And the best thing is he's firmly invested in what you're going through. So even when you feel like you're low and you feel like you're alone, you're never alone. You're never by yourself. God is always sitting in the midst of what you're going through. And just like everything else and every other trial that's come before it, God is going to see you through this. So the best thing for you to do is to focus on your goals and be inspired by those that God has presented to you along the way, because you will not arrive alone. You won't have to face the giant by yourself. God is going to appoint people. None of us arrive at success alone. Many times you've heard this, it takes a village. How many times have you heard it takes a village? I remember being a single mom, raising all of my boys. I didn't do it by myself. If it wasn't for my mother, my sisters, especially my sister's husband, Maurice Crane, my pastor, Bishop Haywood, if it wasn't for him and his wife and my church family and those who stood beside me, I would have never been able to accomplish the feat of raising 4 boys on my own. I could have never done it. And so because of it, I just continue on. I continue on the plight and I continue to move forward. because it means that much to me that I continue on and that I don't give up. Because it's not about giving up. It's not about throwing in the towel when things get rough. You've got to stay in there, hang in there, and push through even when you don't feel like it. So remember, like I told you before, none of us arrive alone. So who are your people? Who are your tribe? I want you to take a moment and think about that. Who are the people that you can call on? And this is our strategy. This is our plan. Who are the people that you can identify right now off the top of your head that when things are not going according to plan, who can you call? And like I said before, I have at least a good 5 people right now that I could think of right off the top of my head that if I called, they would not only respond, but they would pour wisdom and knowledge. And they would not give me anything outside the will of God because they know how I am about my relationship with God and who I am in God. So they're not going to give me something that's going to set me farther away from the God I serve. They're going to keep me in sync with God's will and plan for my life. And they're going to tell me when I'm wrong, because when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I hope you know how to swallow that pill too. Because when you're wrong, you're just wrong. And that is what it is. So number 8, you want to visualize your success. In other words, when failure happens, and if we're failing our way to success, which we are failing our way to success, and failing with the ing on the end, in other words, we're talking about continuation. So while we're failing, we're visualizing our success. We're still seeing it because it gives us the confidence and it builds up the motivation that we need to continue to stretch ourselves forward and continue to go after it with everything that we got in it. Because we're now grabbing enough motivation to be able to continue the journey, because it doesn't end here. It doesn't stop here for us. We press forward, we push forward, and we see ourselves in that place of success, of accomplishment. We see ourselves there. And that is how we get motivated to move forward. Remember, getting stuck is not an option. And yes, I've been stuck before. Yes, I've been knocked down a million times. But when you understand that that is not the end of the story, that is simply a detour, then you figure out what it is that you need to do in order to keep yourself moving towards that goal. You see, I know what God has shown me about me. Do you know what God has shown you about you? Do you know the vision that he has for you? Do you know what he's mapped out and what he's prepared for you to do? Do you know what your destiny entails? Are you just walking and compassing the same mountain over and over? Or is there a map? Is there something that you're walking towards? And are you clear on what that goal is? See, if I'm nothing else, I'm clear on what it is God wants me to do. I'm clear on the purpose that God has for me. But sometimes along the way, failure happens. Delay happens. Setbacks happen. And my bounce back game got to be intact. And that has to come equipped with those who know who I really am and know exactly what it's going to take to get me up and moving right back on task and in step. Can't dwell there. We got to keep moving. We got to keep pushing. We got to keep going. So after you're done visualizing yourself and seeing yourself successful, you want to recognize that staying a failure is a choice. You can choose. So you had the letdown, you had the setback, you failed at something that you thought ultimately that you were going to succeed at it. What do you plan to do? You can choose to work through the failure and succeed, or you can choose to lay down, give up, and remain a failure. But ultimately, the choice is yours. What will you do? Recognize that staying a failure is a choice. I wrote down here that Robert Jordan said, "You don't drown by falling in the water. You drown by staying there." You heard that? You don't drown by falling in the water. You drown by staying there. You have to choose to persevere through the failure in order to get to your success. The other thing is let's just keep it 100. We will never learn to appreciate success if we don't fail. If something tumultuous doesn't happen along the way that reminds us and humbles us, keeps us in a place where we become grateful for the things that we do have, because it's not until you find yourself lacking that you recognize, okay, I need to show forth more gratitude for what I already got working for me. Take your focus off of what's not working and let's focus on what is working. Okay? Does that make sense? So, last and not least, we're going to surround ourselves with those positive people. Now, I've mentioned this more than once. I've mentioned this quite a few times, actually, while we've been talking. Surrounding yourself with positive people. So now I want to take the time to do a little bit of an activity with you guys, if you don't mind. I'm going to pop over here to StreamYard and see how we're doing. And so far, so good. Everything's looking good. Thank you for everyone who has tuned in and everyone who has been here and live on the chat with me. I certainly appreciate it. And I'm looking here to check out. We're going to just take a moment and we're going to also check out StreamYard to see how we're doing out there on LinkedIn's platform. It looks a little blurry to me, but that's okay. We're going to keep on pushing through, and until we get those kinks worked out. In the meantime, we will continue to press through and do what it is we're supposed to do. Because why? Because failure is not defeat. It is simply delay. So tonight I wanted to walk you through an activity which I thought was really wonderful. And you guys tell me what you think. And I'm going to move some things off to the side. But we're going to do a bit of a discussion. I want you, if you are at home, to find a piece of paper, if you will. Find a piece of paper. So take out a sheet of paper. And let's talk about failure. Let's talk about it. I think it's time that we ultimately had this discussion, you guys. It's important that we discuss these things. So I have my board here, but I think I might even have to move some things out the way. You guys are going to have to see the whole of me tonight. All right. So we have this question here. What is failure? So when you talk about failure, I'm going to be looking here in the chat, and you guys tell me, how do you define failure? What is failure to you? Okay, so I would say that failure is a letdown. A setback. What else? Tell me what you feel failure is to you. How do you define failure? And so what I want you to do tonight is I want you to take out that sheet of paper that I asked you to take out. And I want you, I'll make you a sheet of paper here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And I want you to put on the left-hand side failures at the top of your page. And then on this side, I want you to put wisdom. And then I want you to fold the paper in half. Can you do that for me? Fold your paper in half. So in life, we all have failures, and we've talked about this. It's like almost like inevitable. You can't get around the fact that you're going to fail at something. Something is not going to go according to plan. So I see that my aunt put giving up. That's right. That is what failure looks like. That's the only way that you can actually fail, is to give up. If you stop trying, that's the only way for you to fail. So what we define failure by, is it really failure if you're still trying to reach? If you're still grasping at the goal? Can we really consider that failure? I don't think so. So write a time on this side of the page, write a time where you felt like you failed. And this is just going to be for you to see. This is not for you to share. I only want you to write down for yourself on this side of the page some things that you felt like you failed at. Okay, so I'll start us off because I don't mind being transparent. Some of my failures: high school dropout, teen pregnancy, failed marriage, jizz. So I'm talking about failed marriage. How about 2 failed marriages? I dropped out of college 3 times. 3 times college dropout. This time last year, I invested over $140,000 into my restaurant and it failed. So business venture. And let me see what else. I failed in conversations. When I should have used words of affirmation, I used words of defeat over myself. Okay, and so after you have done that and you've listed all the areas in which you felt like you failed, then I want you to transfer over to the other side of the page, and then I want you to list what you learned from each failure. What did you learn from each failure? So what did I learn from being a high school dropout? What was the wisdom in it? Well, I found that because of me being a high school dropout, that ultimately it was gonna keep me from obtaining the level of this like success that I dreamed of. And so I learned that being a high school dropout would ultimately keep me from my goals and dreams. Okay. What I learned from teen pregnancy, let's see, is that ultimately I could become that girl 1 in 10. I learned that having children and being a child made my road a little bit harder than what it had to be. And so I learned ultimately that when you have children at a young age, that you're no longer the point of focus. Now you are the person that is focused. You got to focus on your child. And ultimately for me, that meant like extra jobs, working longer hours, actually couple of jobs, failed marriages, goodness sakes. What I learned out of most of my failed marriages is that you can't be all things to all people. And that you have to be happy with yourself and you can't depend on other people to complete you. People don't complete you. So you have to learn to be happy with yourself first. What I learned about being a 3 times college dropout is that I truly had a desire to want to succeed as a college graduate, but I didn't believe in myself enough. So what it took for me to continue to go back, drop out, go back, drop out, go back, and continue to keep trying is because at some point I began to believe that it was possible. So belief in yourself. What I learned about the failed business venture is that you got to have the right partners. You got to have the right people in it with you. Otherwise, it's doomed to fail. So you got to have the right people, right support, the right investors. That's the wisdom that I gained from it. And you have to make sure that you have your your business set up properly, and that it's also you're not the guarantor on everything, that the business sustains itself in case something like a fire or something like that would happen, so they don't come from you for you personally. That's just like business 101. Never took the time to actually delve deep into it, but I learned these things the hard way. And so those tough conversations that I had where I should have been affirming myself and I actually chose to say bad words, I learned that words are life. And they are death. And that if you don't want to see it manifest, then don't speak on it. If you don't want to see it manifest, then don't speak on it. So after we have looked at the left side that talks about our failures, and then we looked at the right side that talks about the wisdom, okay, the things we learned from our failures. And now I'm going to ask that you take that piece of paper and tear that piece of paper in half, right down the middle. Rip that paper. Do that for me. Rip that paper in half. And in the one hand, you should be holding your failures. In the other hand, you should be holding your wisdom. You should be holding your setback in one hand, and you should be holding what you learned in the other hand. And now I want you to make a valid decision. And this is going to be up to you. I'll ask you to share in the chat if you can, but it's going to be up to you how you choose to handle this. Are you going to choose to keep both? Are you going to choose to keep your failures and the wisdom? Keep them both? Or are you going to throw away your failures and then keep your wisdom? Or are you going to throw away your wisdom and keep your failures? Or are you going to throw them both away? I want you to choose. Now you may ask me, okay, that's like a crazy question. Why on earth would you want me to take and ball up and throw in the trash my failure, my wisdom, or one or the other, or both? There's a reason behind it. And I want you guys, if you've been keeping a journal like I've been advising you over the weeks, I want you to take out a journal and I want you to write down what choice did you make? What did you decide to do? And that's not for me to know. That's not for anybody else in here to know, but this is a part of our activity. What did you decide to do? Did you decide to keep your failures and throw away your wisdom? Did you decide to hold on to your wisdom and throw away your failure? Did you decide that you were going to keep them both? Failure and wisdom? Or did you decide to throw them both away? Write in your journal what choice you made, why you made it, and what is the life lesson in each experience. What was the life lesson in each experience? I will tell you, for me, if I was holding this and this was a paper, I would actually throw away them both. I would throw away my failures because I'm not that anymore. I would throw away the wisdom that I learned from the situation because I'm no longer stuck there and I've already applied the wisdom. So it's no longer in my hands anyways. I can't apply what I'm still holding on to. So I'm going to apply wisdom to my future. I'm going to apply wisdom to my future. So I'm going to throw it away and I'm going to get rid of my failures because I'm not that anymore. I'm no longer a failure. I'm no longer a high school dropout. I hold a bachelor's degree, a 3.98 GPA, summa cum laude, with a million different certifications. I'm no longer a teen mom. I'm old now. I'm 41 years old. Okay. My children are grown. I'm no longer defined by what I felt was a failure. Failed marriages. I'm divorced. That's in my past. I'm no longer held to the things that bound me. And I no longer have to chase or try to convince someone or hold on to people to complete me. I've got to know what that role looks like going ahead for myself. I can't keep holding other people accountable for what makes me happy. It's not their position and it's not their fault that I felt broken or I felt abandoned and I didn't do the emotional work that I needed to do to fulfill myself. 3 times college dropout. No longer does it even matter. I'm no longer a college dropout because I completed the assignment because I chose to believe in myself. My failed business venture, I decided to take it and apply it elsewhere. So I'm writing a cookbook and I'm starting a YouTube cooking channel. So I learned about having the right people and having the right investors with me, and I will carry that with me going forward. Whatever business venture I find myself in, I know that I need to have those pieces in place in order for it to be a great success. The conversations, words of affirmations, recognizing the fact that my words are life and death. I need to control what I say. I need to be mindful and intentional about the words I release from my mouth, because all of heaven is listening every time I open my mouth. And not only is heaven listening, but I'm listening. And I'm the one who has to develop a belief system about behind the words that I'm speaking, especially when I'm speaking over me. So I had to become more mindful of that. And trust me when I say it's still a process. So I threw away my failures because they were only necessary for the wisdom that I needed to get and to keep. And I recognize the fact also there's always something good that comes from even the worst and the worst of things. So good and bad, good always comes from it somehow, some way. I taught myself to ask those critical questions, and you will too. So today I wanted to give you that activity because we've got to begin to reject or accept to live the life as our Creator will want us to live. And that's one that is more celebrated and one where we don't feel defeat and we don't feel like we're stuck in a thing because things didn't go according to plan. So, how are we going to feel our way to success? We're going to reject finger pointing. We're not going to get caught up in blame tactics. We're going to respond to our failure with more optimism and not anger. We're going to be able to share the lessons that we've learned and be able to fluidly talk about it, recognizing that your greatest influence occurs through failure. We're going to seek out clarity, and we're going to celebrate our adaptability. We're going to try, test, improve, and we're going to move forward. We're going to get comfortable with failure because it's teaching us something. We learn something new. Every time we feel like we failed, and we're learning something. Right? So failing your way to success means taking risks and losing in order to ever be able to win. And so that's what I want you to take with you. Sometimes you have to lose in order to win. And the best way to begin is to fail your way to success, never giving up, recognizing that failure is a prerequisite for great success. If you want to succeed faster, then you have to double your rate of failure. And I don't know about you. That sounds a little rough and a little tough and a little hard. So recognize that success is not possible without some form of failure. And then allow for yourself to push through to gain the knowledge that you need in order to become better and to do better. And this time to try again and to try better. Because your success is always right on the other side of you being able to try, and try again. So I want to thank everybody tonight for joining me here for our Tuesday night discussion, our live discussion. Tonight's topic being how to fail your way to success. And it's tough. And many of the points that I gave were tight, but they were right. Okay. So thank you all so much for joining in tonight. And I will see you same time, same place next week, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we will be discussing whatever I reveal in my private Facebook group called Define the Odds, Transitioning from Trauma to Triumph. Please do stop by, join, answer the few little questions that I have you there for in the membership guideline, and I will let you in the group, and you'll be able to access all of the amazing content that we have there. Also, for those of you that are watching out there, many of you know that I have authored a gratitude anthology, and it is available right now today on my website at a 14% discount rate. It's normally $29.99. Right now, copies are $25 each. And I'm asking that each and every person purchase 2 copies of my gratitude anthology, in which I will personally autograph, and I will send you a special message directly from me. And of course, thank you for being by my side and being on my journey as I learn to practice more gratitude and being grateful for the things that God has already done in my life. And let's not forget, you guys, it is the month of Thanksgiving. It is a time of the year where everyone celebrates all over the world everything that they're grateful for, and people are creating memories, and people are gathering together with their families. This is the perfect time for you to grab that gratitude anthology, make it a point of discussion amongst family and friends when you decide to gather, and go right out to www.arlettaallen.com, where you will be able to grab your copy. Thank you so much for joining in tonight, and I cannot wait to see you all again next week. For those of you that are watching me in our private community, know that I will be in touch with you tomorrow. So I will extend a message to you, let you know many more ways to encourage you and to build you up. But in failure, know that you were never alone, that we all have faced off with some form of failure at some point in our lives. And it's all about not staying down. How will you try and try again? Because each and every time you choose not to give up, each and every time you choose to try and try again, you are getting yourself that much closer to your success. Even the thought of that made me smile, and I hope it made you smile too. God bless you all, and thank you so much for joining me. I will be talking to you all soon. Have an amazing week. Here's to you as well. Thank you all so much for joining me here on the live presentation of Failing Your Way to Success with Arletta Allen. And I will be in contact with you all again soon. God bless you. Have an amazing evening.